borrow an African proverb which says, even the best cooking pot will not produce food. With that, we delve into the development section. And we would want to start off by joining us, welcoming online, Toyin Sanni, the founder, Group Chief Executive Officer, Emerging Africa Capital. He is also the President, Association of Corporate and Individual Investment Advisors in Nigeria, and also the co-lead and ambassador for the Africa Chief Executive Officers Forum in Nigeria. Also joining us is Professor Carlos Lopes, AU High Representative for Partnerships with Europe. He is also the former Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commissions for Africa, and also is a professor in the Mandela School of Public Governance at the University of Cape Town. Also joining us is Asmae Boureddaya, a special advisor to the Chief Executive Officer of the African Union Development Agency on engagement with private sector and resource mobilization. He is also the board member of the International Center for Diplomacy and also the former advisor to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Morocco. Also joining us online is Dr. Albert Zeufack, the Chief Economist of For Africa World Bank. He is also the former practice manager in the Macroeconomics and Fiscal Management Global Practice and leader of the World Bank Wide Community of Practice for the Management of Natural Resources Rent. He is also the former Director of Research and Investment Strategy, Chief Economist for Khazanah Nasional Berhad, a Malaysian sovereign wealth fund, also a member of the Technical Advisory Committee of the Natural Resource Charter at the University of Oxford. He is also a member of the advisory board of the Natural Resource Governance Institute, and also a member of the United Nations Sustainable Development Network, and a member of the board of the African Economic Research Consortium. And to moderate this session, which would be our last session for today, it almost feels like I shouldn't say this, but we have to definitely delve into the session. Ladies and gentlemen, please do join me as I welcome online as well, the Group Managing Editor, African Leadership Magazine, UK, in person of Kingsley, Okeke. Over to you, Mr. Kingsley.
Thank you very much, the MC. What an amazing introduction. And so our panelists, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, or well, gentlemen, and thank you very much. We have the next 40 minutes to look at a very critical segment of this past 3 days. And it's going to be 40 minutes of loads of discussion. And what an interesting way to end a very insightful, African Economic Congress, the second edition. And I will just go straight, because introductions have been done. I'll go straight to my questions. And of course, I will invite our viewers, listeners, those joining us via the network, and also those that have tuned in to be expectant, of course, because we're going to discuss issues that are relevant, development issues that would help us, in advancing the cause of the continent. Again, thank you very much. And my first question, of course, will go to, we'll start with the, let's take it this way, then we meet, of course, the women. And Dr. Albert, I'd like to, you can talk about development without, of course, foundations for sustainable development, without talking about a recent Brookings Institute report that says that Africa is the last frontier for, extreme, for extreme poverty. And they give a number, and I understand that, of course, the 2019 report puts extreme poverty. It said 1 in every 3 Africans live below the poverty line. And what are some of the urgent steps, in your view, that can be taken to address these issues?
Kingsley, thank you so much, and great pleasure joining all of you on this panel for the African Economic Congress. Listen, I think the theme of this conference is extremely timely. It is timely because COVID-19 has actually shattered the foundations for long-term growth in Africa. And this despite a modest health impact on the continent. COVID has clearly not affected the African continent as hard as people had anticipated, but the economic consequences have been profound. So economic activity in Africa would contract by more than 3% in 2020. And poverty, Kingsley, as you mentioned, poverty is going to be increasing for the first time in 2 decades. We are likely to see more than 40 million people push below the poverty line in Africa as the result of COVID-19. In terms of per capita growth, we are actually projecting that we could see a decline by up to 6 percentage points, which will take Africa back to where we were in 2007, which is 13 years of progress completely wiped out. So COVID has really taken a tough toll on African economies. Now, what should we do? What are the ways out of it? And again, this conference is about the next Africa. It's about, how do we lay those foundations anew? And we need to build differently. We need to certainly, implement the kind of reforms that will allow Africa to emerge stronger and more sustainably out of COVID. I have 5 suggestions to make. The first is to invest in the digital economy in a way we haven't been doing in the past. The digital gap between Africa and the rest of the world is still huge. And this is a gap of infrastructural gap of access, but it's also a gap in terms of affordability. In West Africa, we have the costlier and the least reliable internet in the world. That has to change. We need to make sure we connect all the people who are not currently part of that global economy, part of that global internet. So that's one, investing in the digital. And if there was any risk before COVID that the digital is a necessity for Africa, I hope that debate has been put to rest now. So that's one. The second suggestion is, in investing in energy and providing electricity to Africans. We still have a rate of access to electricity of less than 40% across Africa. And this is an average. And we have countries like Chad with 8% access to electricity. We have countries like Burundi, Niger, less than 15% access to electricity. We cannot develop in the dark, we cannot transform in the dark, we cannot actually access internet without electricity. This is clearly an area where we need to really put all our energies to make sure in sub-Saharan Africa, we close this gap once for all. The third suggestion I have is to really focus on adding value to our products before exporting them. And that's the way we will create jobs in the process. I'm sorry. So far, So far, what we have been doing is basically to dig and sell in sub-Saharan Africa. We need to start adding value, transforming those products, adding value, creating jobs in the process. And that would go through creating that bigger regional market. So creating jobs will depend on how well we implement the Africa trade, free trade area, the continental free trade area. We'll need to really invest in there and build those regional value chains that are absolutely necessary. The fourth area of action to build anew is on empowering our women, and especially investing in girls' education. There is a clear correlation between keeping girls for an additional year in secondary school and many health outcomes, including for kids. Not only health outcomes, but also education outcomes for kids. So investing in African women, especially investing in girls' education, is what would take Africa on a different path. And finally, in doing all of this, we need to continue managing our economy to ensure macroeconomic stability, good governance, and stronger institutions, fighting corruption, limiting all the illicit flows to keep African resources at home for investment. Thank you. Over to you, Kingsley.
We're trying to sort out connectivity issues, and I do hope that we are able to get back the doctor back online. Hello, doctor? Can doctor hear us?
Yes, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay. Whilst we are waiting Kingsley to join us back, doctor, presently in Africa, where do you see Africa in the next 30 years with its present growth economically?
We are projecting that in 2021, we may get back into positive territory when it comes to GDP growth. But it would take 2 to 3 more years before we back to growth and output levels before COVID. So what we are seeing is clearly, a period where we will have, we'll have a recovery clearly in Africa in terms of growth, but in terms of level of output, it would take a little bit longer. So what we have said in our report in October, the Africa's Pulse, is that we should be prepared for a road to recovery that would be long and steep. That road
areas that we need to have in order to encourage the private sector to invest in infrastructure projects is the risk mitigation also. So what we have done as part of the African Union Development Agency's intervention, alongside with the African Development Bank, the Islamic Development Bank, Guarantco, which is the only African institution that deals with currency fluctuation in the continent, ATI also, is that we created something we call the co-guarantee platform, in which those projects, the PPPs, come to us, and then we discuss them and we try to create a mechanism for risk mitigation. So I'd be very, very happy to invite Madam Tony on the side to speak bilaterally about it. Thank you. Now, coming back to your question, as I said in my first intervention, when COVID-19 first started, we were very quick under the leadership of our CEO, Dr. Ibrahim Asmae, to create a COVID-19 continental response plan of action for the economy and for the development. And one of the main areas that we are focusing on today are the MSMEs. So we have identified the challenges, the main challenges, because MSMEs have many, many challenges. And as much as they are important for our growth in the continent, we have to be also responsible for their growth so that they can sustain their development and help create jobs, help the financial and economic stability, not only in their communities, but also as a dividend to all the continent. So we have created a program that's called 1,000 MSMEs alongside with partners, in which we tackle 3 main areas. And I think that these main areas, if we have like a joint action with the governments and with other private sector, big players of the private sector, can give wonderful results. So first of all, we are tackling the competencies, because a lot of MSMEs, they go into business or into entrepreneurship just because Either they don't want to work for someone, or because they want to achieve their dreams as quick as possible, or because they couldn't find jobs. So let's speak very honestly. But wanting to start a business and starting a business are two completely different things. So we try to make these two completely different things come together by ensuring that we give vocational trainings to these startups, to these entrepreneurs. Because while you can be very, very good at creating pencils, you are not that good at managing an enterprise. So we want to bring this expertise, and we want to focus on that vocational training side. The second thing is that we try to link MSMEs to financing, to access financing. Because when we started again this the COVID-19 response plan of action, I have been mesmerized by the amount of startups that were created to tackle the COVID-19 problem. So a lot in across all the continents, but they all tell you, yes, we have the idea, we have the prototypes, we are ready even to give our prototypes to other people, but we don't have the financing to expand our activity and take it to the other level. So we partnered with EcoBank for now. And this is a call for any actor of private sector that feels like they can give back to the community by helping us through that project, to reach out to us. We would be very, very happy to collaborate with you. So we are trying to select and do our best to link these projects with investors. We're not saying like a charity, but we are trying to be on this win-win perspective, in order that the private sector actor will see the benefit of it and come and invest, instead of going to invest in the stock market or going to invest in some more classical investments. We would like them to believe in the power of the youth, in the power of our startups, and in the power of our MSMEs. And the third thing is that we are working, of course, we are an African Union Development Agency. We are working with government in order to strengthen and enhance the jurisdictional climate of the countries, like to be more in favor, to give a positive fiscal environment for MSMEs. And believe me, this is my own conviction. This COVID-19 has shown that if we want to achieve something as Africa, we will achieve it, one. And two, if we put all our hands together, we shall succeed. So we have the component of public sector, of private sector, that should place the enabling or the incapacitating of the MSMEs as their top priorities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Of course, that was quite incisive, and we're running, of course, behind schedule. In 6 minutes, I would like to see how we'll spread it across the three of us. Let's get your last words about the next Africa. The next Africa. Where should we be going? Your last words, Doctor.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. It's quite tough to be saying just few words about the future of Africa, right? So, but again, if I have to focus on one of my, 5 suggestions to build Africa anew, and let me remind you what are the 5s: it's digital, energy, jobs through value addition, women empowerment, especially girls' education, and macro stability and good governance. So these are the 5, and we cannot get around them. But if I'm to focus on one that would really, be the defining change we need in Africa, it's going to be a combination of energy and digital, because that would allow, our SMEs to raise their productivity. That would allow our youth to create their own jobs and actually serve the world. Because if we can manage to give them both energy and digital, they can sit in Africa and actually be contributing to GDP elsewhere in the world, creating those contents and, connecting into those global platforms and earning a living that is way, way above subsistence agriculture. So, you know, if I have one thing to say about how to build Africa better, it's going to be about closing the energy and the digital gap in Africa in the next 5 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Closing the gap in the next 5 years. I saw when you mentioned women empowerment, Mrs. Sanni nodded because that's been her tough. 2 minutes for you, Ms. Sanni. What do we do to build the next Africa?
Thank you very much. I think one of Africa's greatest assets, beyond the resources that everybody likes to look at, is human capital. We have 1.1 billion people across this continent. I believe that the future of Africa is in investing in people. The people are going to determine whether Africa stands or Africa falls apart. So I would like to see an Africa in which we're investing in healthcare, we're investing in education, and yes, we're investing in women, because the women are 50% of Africa. And if we can get the women to be on the same level of economic development as the men, we're looking at immediately almost doubling the productivity and the economic value of this continent. So those are my priorities, and let's look at the people. Let's invest in education, let's invest in healthcare, and let's focus on closing the gender gap. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I know that if we are to let you, you can speak about women empowerment and gender issues from now till the end of the session. But just joining us, of course, is Dr. Carlos Lopes. Sorry, Professor Carlos Lopes, and we're just about rounding up. But before we do that, we would, of course, take some words from Professor Lopes. I would like to ask a very important question. You founded an interesting blog, the African Cheetah Run. And the story behind the blog is that, of course, that the Africa is playing a catch-up. Cheetah is the fastest animal. Would Africa catch up? That's the question I would like to pose to you as where we are today. From the time you founded the blog to this day, how is Africa faring?
Well, actually, I think it's important for us to bear in mind that catching up is not imitating. It's about learning. It's about accumulating as much knowledge as we can from previous experiences. But by far, what we have noticed from historical review, and the literature is quite astonishing rich in so far as this is concerned, we know that every single wave of industrialization, every single wave of development, if we want, is based on previous accumulated experience, but also innovation and change. So I don't think Africa is going to just imitate if it wants to really progress and become what we all aspire it to be. It has to be a catch-up that is done with innovation. And that's why, you know, my image of the cheetah is quite telling, because the cheetah is a team player. The cheetah is elegant. The cheetah is very effective in its way of, you know, basically chasing as a predator. It has an efficiency rate that is higher than all the other predators, because it doesn't spend energy that is not really well targeted and well focused. It is a very focused animal. And it is also a gender sensitive animal because of what you were just discussing in the previous panel. So, which is not the case with the lions, which is also used sometimes as a metaphor. So I think it's very important for us to use the cheetah as the metaphor of what we want to be, a catch-up, but with innovation, with team building, with this spirit of efficiency. And of course, because it is the fastest animal on earth and it hails from Africa, I think it's very befitting for us to use it as a symbol.
Thank you very much. Last word from Mrs. Boureddaya before we call it a day today. We still have just about 5 more minutes.
Thank you very much, Kingsley. And I would like to have half a minute in order for Dr. Lopes to elaborate more. Actually, it's very simple. I will pick it from all the speakers. We are talking about education, women and youth empowerment. We are talking about inclusiveness. We are talking about governance. I would just like to conclude it in a very simple sentence. If we want to go far as Africa, we have to go together, hand in hand, trusting in ourselves first for the rest of the world to trust us. Thank you.
Thank you very much. In 2 minutes, Prof, in 2 minutes, tomorrow, 5th of November, will be exactly 1 year since you spoke at the Institute of International and European Affairs. You talked about where you argued that with concrete facts, actually, that Africa has what it takes to claim the 21st century. 1 year on, do you still share this optimism?
Yes, I think, of course, COVID is perturbing us. And I just saw a message from my good friend and brother, Albert Zeufack, about leapfrogging. And I think he's very right. Africa has what it takes to leapfrog. I think it's very important for us to bear in mind that if we are going to do it, we are going to do it with the learning that I mentioned, but also with the help of using the technologies advantages that latecomers can actually use. For instance, when it comes to energy, we can afford now to go into the renewable energy route with competitive prices, which other regions, when they industrialized, didn't have. When it comes to future of work, we can now count on possibilities to maximize inclusiveness, like in the financing sector, because of digital platforms that it was very difficult for others to take on board. So we have enormous advantages, and there is no reason why we should look into technology as an intimidation for our possibilities, but rather as a propeller. Because I like to say, we have a very young population, the youngest in the world. And normally we associate innovation, change in technologies with, and rightly so, ecosystems, institutional capacities, and intellectual property regimes that make it much more conducive for certain countries to actually have the technological edge. But what people normally forget is that technology is also about transforming innovation into consumables. And if you look into the consumer market perspective and you look into the future, the likely consumers of the new technologies are obviously the young people. You don't expect very old people to consume new technology. So where is the young people going to be? Mostly in Africa. So from a consumer market perspective, Africa is going to be part of the game, because all these various enterprises that are doing a lot of money because of technological innovation in the future, if they want to expand, they cannot just count on mature markets. They will have to expand in India, they will have to expand in Africa because of the demographics. So I think that gives us an opportunity. It doesn't mean it's automatic. It doesn't mean that if we don't actually create the educational capacities that are required for our youth to take full advantage of these opportunities, it's just going to happen by magic. It requires proper policy, it requires proper focus, but it is possible.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof. It's been amazing, distinguished panelists, to have you all, contribute to this wonderful topic. Well, viewers, what a way to end a 3 days session. Eminent and qualified personalities from across the continent giving us their views on development, sharing optimism. So if I were you, I'll still hold on to the fact that Africa, of course, has the capacity to claim the 21st century. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we would hand over to, of course, the compare to round it up for us for the evening. Thank you once again, eminent panelists. It's been good talking with you. Thank you, viewers, for investing your time with us. We'll see you again on another edition of African Economic Congress. Thank you very much.
Well,
Thank
thank
you.
you very much, Kingsley, and our esteemed panelists. We do want to say a very big thank you for the discourse. Takeaway from all that has been said is a nation's wealth is only in the wealth of its people.